Okay, so I had a couple of people in a property management forum ask me about this, so I figured I'd just go ahead and make a little video. Today we're going to be replacing the third door in my little storage unit here. These are doors that were put in the early 70s. They're in really bad shape, and you can see they're repurposed back doors for a unit. And so they got the little window back there. It's really not appropriate for a storage unit. So today we're going to be going ahead and replacing it with a slab door here. I'm not going to rip out the frame and do a pre-hung door, which would be more expensive. And it's really not necessary here. The frame's in decent shape and whatnot. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the slab door and we're going to notch it for hinges and put the door handle in it and all that good stuff using a couple of different kits that I like to use, and I'll show you how I use those. And we're just going to replace that door right where it stands. So I'm going to take that door off and we're going to telegraph its settings onto the new door and go ahead and do that. So let's get started. Okay, so you can see I have the door out of the frame and I've left the hinges where they're at. Still mounted in there. Saves me a little bit of time. And what I have here is I have the old repurposed door. The previous owner had 3 different styles of door back here. Look a little wonky. And this one has been kind of rotting out. I suspect this was put in back in the 80s. If the previous owner's work tells me anything. And you can see he's just sort of tacked on a wood panel on the bottom to cover up the the fact that it's completely falling apart. So what I've done here, this is the top. I have the new door on the sawhorses underneath, and I've lined up the top. So it's important that the hinge side here, which I have here, and the top is as flush as you can get it. Now there may be some bowing, and there's really not much you can do about that. You're gonna, when you're done, if there's too much bow and you have some problems fitting it in the doorway, you're going to have to bust out your rasp or a heavy grit sander or something, your choice there. But this one actually fits pretty good. So we want to make sure the top's lined up. The latch side can float a bit. If the latch side on the new door is out, typically it's not out so much that it's a big problem. I prefer to use just a hand planer and go ahead and plane that down, but this one actually lines up pretty good. And the bottom may be a bit of a different height, and that's okay. We can take care of that with a toe kick, back sweep, both. Depends on what we want, but this one actually looks pretty close. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and telegraph the hinge positions and the latch position onto the new door, and then we'll go from there. Alright, so for the latch kit, you just go ahead and trace this out. And since we're going to be using the bore master for this, which I'll show you in a minute, we don't really have to worry too much about the actual hole that the latch itself goes out of. But we do want to make sure and telegraph the notch out for the little frame that goes around it. So you just get your seat square out and you mark it on the door. Easy enough. Get it right to the edge. And with the Bore Master kit, it has a little template to use with your router, and we'll go ahead and show you how to use that. And when the kit goes on, when you get this lined up, it automatically lines up the smaller hole into the side here, so you don't have to worry too much about that. Alright, so now let's go look at the hinges. Alright, so these are some old school hinges. They're pretty deep. We'll be using the Ryobi kit for that, and I'll show you that. But go ahead and get right to the edge, even though this is curved. Just get to the edge of the flat with your speed square or your straight edge, whatever you're using, and just mark it down there. And that'll be easy to do with the Ryobi hinge kit, and we'll do that on all 3. And then we'll come back and we'll remove all of that material with our router. Alright, now that we've telegraphed our holes and hinges onto the new door and taken the old door off, I'm going to break out the Bore Master kit This is easily the best kit you're going to find of this type, period. Don't even argue with me. That's just how it is. It's a little spendy. You can find them for about $350, and I know that's a lot of money. But if you're going to be doing more than, maybe 3 or 4 doors in your career, probably going to want to buy this. I put in a few doors buying the cheap plastic hole saw version that you can get at Home Depot or Lowe's and whatnot. And if you're only going to be putting in 1 or 2 doors, that's fine. They're not great. You'll deal with splintering and whatnot. But you can see this one has much more serious saws. These are much better than hole saws for doing this type of work. You'll get a lot more mileage out of these. And of course this guy right here is what you're paying for. So this is going to go on to our door like this. We're going to line it up and get it lined up with the hole. You're going to have going in the side and going in the top here. This thing is substantial. This being snug on the bottom of the door prevents any kind of splintering, which is important. Man, there's no bigger bummer than putting in a new door and it's just trashing the inside of it with a big splinter. That's just not good. So this takes care of all of that. So I'm going to go ahead and hook this up and get the drill bits in there and show you what that looks like, and we'll go from there. Alright, so we got our drill hooked up. It comes with an adapter, which you should use on both of these. We've lined our door handle hole up here, and that lines this up. It's very, very sturdy. This thing is not moving. So I'm going to go ahead. You're going to want to do this on low speed, and you're going to want to let that bit work its way through the door. Don't put your shoulder on it and lean on it trying to get it to go faster. Just let it work its way through the door. And so I'll go ahead and do that. I don't think you guys need to thrill to watching me drill. I think you know how drills work. So we'll go ahead and do that and come back. Alright, we're all done drilling here. We'll go ahead and take this bad boy off. See, that's all smooth and dreamy there. Nice, perfect. Trust me, it's perfect underneath. Here, I'll show you, just in case you don't believe me. Look at that, it's perfect. No splintering, no nothing. I love that kit. I've used it a lot. And I know it's painful to buy. I had some tears on the checkbook too, but I'm really glad I spent the money on it, so I highly recommend it. Okay, so we're going to deal with boring this out for the strike plate, and we're going to do the hinges. And to do that, I'm going to take the door off the sawhorses, and I'm going to stand them up against the beam because it's easier to work when it's working vertically like that. So I'll set that up and we'll be back. Alright, I'm going to do the first hinge here. This is the Ryobi hinge kit. And this is actually a very well designed device. It can handle any width, any depth. You can have square, you can have rounded. It does a very good job. My one knock on it is this brace bar right here, which is plastic, and you're torquing on it to tighten it down. Be very careful with that. My first one I broke. So you only need to tighten it down a little bit just to snug it. It's got these two depth gauges, which are very handy items for the thin hinges and thick hinges. So you get your router depth figured out there, which is pretty handy. I like that feature quite a bit. So I'm just going to go ahead and router out this hinge here, and then I'll do the other two. I don't think need to watch me do all of them, but we'll do the one here. You can see, boy, that does a super slick job right there. So I'm going to go ahead and turn the camera off and do the other two, and then we'll remount this door. Alright, we're going to get our strike plate board out here, and we're not putting a bolt lock on here. This is just a handle. It's just a little simple storage unit, not a problem. So this is one of the items from the kit. You can see this is for the 1 and 2 1/4. You can measure this plate size, and that's 1 inch by 2 1/4. So if you ever aren't sure, just get your strike plate out and measure it. This is actually really easy to use. It's got little plastic guides, and the kit also comes with this. So if you need help lining it up, making sure you've got it vertically, we really don't because we've got those lines in there, but if you ever need to, you can pop that bad boy in there, line it up with your hole, and get the thing absolutely perfect. And then you tap in the anchors, your hammer. I know some people complain about, oh, that leaves a mark. Get over it. I'm not overly worried about some scuffing and whatnot on this door. This is primed, and I'm going to be painting this entire carport, including the doors, here next week. So I'm not too terribly concerned about that. But then you got to get your router depth correct, and sometimes that takes a couple of tries, but we're going to go ahead and take a run at that here next. Alright, get my safety glasses on here and bore this out. Alright. Pull off the anchors. Really worried about those holes, go ahead and plunge them out or stick some putty in there. It's not really a crisis. It's in a door jamb. I'm not that worried about it. So we can then take our plate and make sure that bad boy fits in there, and that does. So we are good to go. Next we're gonna take this up and fit it in the hinges and see how much rasping we have to do. Okay, you can see all the hinges went in nicely. It was a little bit of a struggle doing that by yourself. I like to use a monkey bar to raise and lower with my foot. You can use shims, whatever, or bring a helper. If you've got a helper, that's even better. So this door is a smidge wide. We're talking maybe a 1/16 of an inch right around the door hinge and the bottom. So I am going to bust out my handy dandy hand planer, doing this old school, and I'll go ahead and shave that down so we get a nice smooth close. And I'm pretty sure you don't need to watch me do that unless you're really weird. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this off and shave that door down. Alright, skipping about 10 minutes of exciting hand scraping there. Looks like a lot of wood, but it's really not. So that closes pretty much perfectly now. Just nice and snug. So yeah, takes a few minutes putting that out there. You can get an orbital sander with 60 grit or something like that, but you know, when you've been working out as much as I obviously have, using manual tools is no problem. I recommend doing it with the hand tools. With a good sharp blade, it goes pretty quick. Alright, so let's get the door hardware back in there and we are good to go. Alright, we got the door hardware back on and it slides shut quite nicely. So that's what you're shooting for when you're doing a replacement like this. You don't want to have to mess around with the hinges or anything else like that. So from the time I showed up here with my door on my sawhorses, it was a little more than an hour, but I think a fair amount of that was me horsing around with the camera and taking little breaks. But you should be able to do a door replacement like that in well under an hour, as long as everything goes smoothly. If your doors are more warped and you have to do a lot more scraping or sanding or planing or whatever, then it's going to take you a little bit longer. So I'll go ahead and put a low profile toe kick under here, or maybe I'll just put a back sweep. That looks to be a pretty small gap there. I can probably get away with a back sweep. And I will call this a day. But anyway, that is the quick and dirty of using a slab door to replace a door where it hangs in the frame. Save yourself a little money, a little time when that's appropriate. All right, see you next time.